Hello everyone and welcome to the And More Bus Videos YouTube channel. A very happy new year to everyone watching this video. This video should be releasing on the 1st of January 2023, so a very happy new year to you all. Obviously, New Year marks the end of Christmas and stuff like that, and going into a new year. However, we're still in winter, we've still got lots of exciting stuff coming ahead in the channel. Both winter related and not so winter related, so you're not always having that feeling of being cold and it being wet outside and snowy. And I do have quite a lot of exciting videos and content planned for this channel and my other channel and More Central as we go into 2023. So this is your morning special, as we did with Christmas Day. We're doing a morning special on the And More Bus Videos channel, and then in the evening, sort of about I think 4 or 5 o'clock-ish, on the And More Central channel, there will be a New Year special video on there too. So do go and check out that channel if you haven't already. Get subscribed to it so you don't miss it, and make sure you do watch the Christmas special as well, as that was thoroughly a lot of planning went into that, safe to say. So hopefully it makes a good watch as well. In this video, I'm going to be driving this bus that I will introduce in a minute on this map that I will introduce in a minute that kind of doesn't need any introductions. But I will also, throughout this video, be announcing some exciting news for the releases on the And More Bus Videos channel to welcome in 2023 with some exciting uploads, an exciting edit to the upload schedule for January 2023. So for now, in front of us is the Volvo B8R Elite A, the articulated version of the Eclipses in the Veyland pack. It forms with the stealth front, as they call it, that the street decks predominantly have, but is also available on the B8R Elite vehicles. We haven't seen any articulated variations yet in the UK, you never know, one might appear, but the UK doesn't really have that much fondness with articulated buses. That's why the ones that you will see like this, predominant places like Lothian, that have just gone with the standard length sort of B8R Elite style, and other companies here and there that have started to purchase them as well. This bodywork is also going to become more common with the Electroliner release that we are expecting in 2023 to appear with quite a few major bus operators, potentially first as well, who will be buying some Electroliners, electric single-deckers, sort of in the RLE style, with this front bodywork. For now though, for this video, we are going to drive the 12 service, and I will further explain as to the madness behind the idea to use the first bar livery in this video. So we'll get the bus all set up, and we've got an evening run ahead of us. We are going to be doing the 12. This is Camberwell Garage, and we're doing the 12 service all the way through to Oxford Circus. The service that we are driving is timetabled at approximately 32 minutes end to end. That will be dependent on how lucky we get with traffic lights, how lucky we get with passengers, and that the vendor bus doesn't jackknife. Because we've all got to remember the reason they got shuttered them in London was because of the fact that they weren't that practical with some of the tight streets in the capital. So I'm not too fussed with the timetable as such. I mean, I'd dread to think how early we are coming round. I will just push it forward by a minute so that when we get on to stand, it's all alright. But yes, this vehicle. Now, you would be sort of fooled into thinking that first bar livery in central London wasn't that only with the Olympic Games. No. And the hint to that is the fact that we're driving a bendy bus and not just a random Barbie double-decker. The interesting factor with the first bar livery is it actually made an appearance. I'm unsure if it made it start before, but one of the first appearances it made was just after the millennium in the year 2000. When First Bus, having introduced their B10 LA Fusions, basically the articulated variation of the popular Renown, they just put them into service in places like Aberdeen. Oh, there we go. There's our people just spawning out of nowhere. And they'd put them into places like Aberdeen, into Leeds, into Manchester. Manchester, they're on the 8 between Bolton and Manchester. The number 1, they're on the Cross City Brown Line 1 service. in Aberdeen. They were used on the uni services. And they also ended up in places such as the west of England later in life and in Glasgow too. Glasgow and Aberdeen. I think Glasgow might have had them new for the 9 and they ended up in Aberdeen. That might be the way around for that. But basically, they got these vehicles in service and they got quite excited because they were the second generation bendy buses for the UK. The first generation being the ones that South Yorkshire had, the step entrance Stepsaurus. So these were all low floor articulated buses, mass in inner city people movers. It was kicking off in Europe, everybody was getting excited. And in the UK, First Bus primarily got the bug. And they turned around to TfL, Transport for London at the time, and looked into trialling one on the 207 service. And the two of the vehicles that were trialled on the 207 service that ran up to Hayes in central London. Also, to bear in mind, the 207 ended up being the last route to have a bendy bus on, the first and the last. And the 207 saw two bendy buses from the first fleet used on it. The first one was a B7 LA Fusion, pretty new at the time, that arrived there in London red with sort of the yellow like line sort of branding that they chose at the time for London, because they like to have a little bit of first livery on the London livery instead of it just being plain red. So they ran that round with that. And then the second vehicle was a B10 LA Fusion that arrived and operated in central London on the 207 service in First Barber livery. Very, very similar style to this. You've got to bear in mind that Barber, since its initial launch, I mean, the sort of website information on the side ones have been there in the year 2000, and it was slowly sort of expanded upon. But the basic First Barber livery was on the B10LA Fusion that operated on the 207 service. So that's the concept behind part of the madness here. Although we don't have the 207 route in Adder London, because the geography of the 207 is totally different to where this map is based. I thought articulated buses did operate the 12 at one point, so A, it means I can actually get round the routes portrayed in the map, and it's also a nice little link there. Plus, as for a New Year's special, it's a totally different style of video to film. So, because I don't get many excuses to drive this bus now. So, sort of obviously on that front, the articulated variant of the Valen pack isn't as fast as sort of the rigid, as they call them, B7 hourlies and B8s that you've got. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not too far off them, but you definitely notice a change in acceleration. I.e., this doesn't quite accelerate as quickly. That's probably a good thing. Just to note as well, I haven't logged on the machine because I was rather fearful that iBus would start kicking off, and I do kind of want an iBus free run if I can help it. I didn't think there were that many people. Every time on this map, you load up your people, and then the lights change to red. I do understand the frustration of London bus drivers. Very, very tight timetables, and then having fights with the traffic lights is not particularly ideal. In fairness now, it's been quite a bit since I last did my trips to central London. I actually did 2 trips within the space of a month, around a year ago actually. Basically 2 trips in the space of a month. For the life of me, I can't remember what the first trip, the rationale behind the first trip was. But I understand that the second trip was to watch a gig, and you'll remember I did the videos on the HCT service that ran within the capital, sort of across to Waterloo, and then did a video on comparing the electric buses. So all in all, that was a very, very nice trip out. Now I just for some reason just haven't managed it this year. I've been that busy with all sorts of bits and bobs that I've needed doing. I just didn't get a chance to do it, unfortunately. So I'm planning to make another trip down once my schedule that is monumentally busy at the moment. Once my schedule that is pretty busy calms down a tad, I am hoping to make a trip over. I'll trip down to London again. I was hoping to get down there for the farewell of the Arriva Heritage Fleet. Unfortunately, I did manage that, and it was quite sad. I was hoping because they put an Heritage Routemaster on the 137. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get down there for that because other commitments prevented me from having the day off, sadly, and all of that lot. But these things happen, and hopefully, as my reward for when I've sorted out a few major bits and bobs that are currently in the works, that will be a nice reward for me. So although I do know the 12 service, I've kept the arrows and things up just to double check because it has been a little bit since I've driven the 12. I know that when Adam and sort of first came out, I wasn't too fussed with it, but then I sort of immersed myself into it a little bit more and just started to regularly drive the 12. The 12 is my go-to service. I do like the 12 because it's not the longest route out there on London. It's one that you can sort of drive up and down on a fair bit without any major um, sort of getting bored of doing a single running because you're constantly driving to and fro and to keep time. You're seeing the other vehicles running early, running late kind of thing. And I just love how sort of hands-on the route is. I mean, the routes like the 159 are nice, but in a practical sense, you're not going to want to sit down in front of the screen and do an entire round trip with how long it is in each direction. It's not something you're going to want to do, and sometimes with OMSI, even like on or off camera, I do really like to just spend time driving on a route or driving on a duty and just going up and down on that duty. It's surprisingly therapeutic. Oh, those lights have changed. I want to make it through those lights. I'm not waiting here for ages. I'm used to waiting for ages. I'm not doing that. Don't know why the buildings ahead haven't loaded in. I think they're trying to load in. They're just not. There we go. That's it. Just not much luck with it. I do also love with how tight the timetables are on this map. In a realistic sense, I just love to sort of drive to the speed that you've got to get to these places at the right time and not run late and things like that, because it's a very different atmosphere to, let's say, driving on Strathshire. I mean, I would describe it as similar sort of, you do have to keep driving like you do in Smarden, but it's a totally opposite demographic to the timetable's relatively tight. They're relatively tight on Smarden because you're not expected to pick that many people up versus add in London, where you are stopping pretty much at every single bus stop, and if you don't, there's something wrong. However, I must say, jumping straight from Smarden into Add in London is quite a stark contrast, that must be said. Something I have just noticed as well with that previous bus stop, is that the indication that people want to get off the bus, that icon disappears even when you open the front doors. It doesn't wait for you to open the rear doors, even though people will only leave through the rear doors. That's a random bit of trivia, that. It's like a wave going down the bus. Oh, okay. The bus is shouting at me now. I've had my fun. The bus is not happy with me. Come on. Oh my goodness, come on, steering. Don't fail on me. Steering just did not want to turn. That was rather scary, was that? Just did not want to know. Now, something that always surprises me is when it comes to vehicle capacities. One thing, when the Bendy buses entered service in London and across the rest of the rest of the country, was the idea that people can hop on and hop off. They utilise the capacity, and it reduces what is commonly known in the enthusiast world as London syndrome. London syndrome basically is where you're on a double-decker bus, and because people are only on it for a couple of stops, everybody is sat downstairs. So every single seat is taken downstairs. You've got people standing downstairs. Because they think they're going to be on the bus for a short period of time, they don't see the point in going upstairs. And this is what articulated buses are aimed at, is this idea that you don't have to go upstairs. There's plenty of standing room for people that just want to stand for a couple of stops. And there's seating for those who need it. And there's a bit more on one deck. Obviously not as many as you get with double-decker, but because you have that many standing capacity, it's like the super trams in Blackpool have a seating capacity of near 50, I think. But the standing capacity is over 220. So it's this model where they want just more people on the buses, even if they are just standing. And that was the model that went through with the Bendy buses. That's why you would find Bendy buses outside of London were primarily targeted on university corridors, on student university corridors, on busy routes to the hospital, those kind of services, or roads where people hop on and hop off a lot. We all know those kind of roads, going into sort of major towns and cities, where they've got shops on them and people you only want to utilise the local shops and that kind of shopping culture. So that's where the Bendy buses were aimed at. And looking at sort of that model, it's also quite odd when you consider single deck capacities, especially linking to the Veiling, because the Eclipse 2 B7R leads that First Bus have will surprise you in how many people they can get on the buses. For a few of you up in West Yorkshire, you'll have noticed that some of the busier corridors from Halifax, for example, between Lane. Oh no, I'm not. No, I'm not in the wrong lane. Goodness, having a bit of a brain malfunction. But you will notice that over the festive period in Halifax, primarily First Halifax do it because of the vehicles that they have. Single deckers appeared on the busier corridor services. such as the 576, the 508 to Leeds, 576 to Bradford, and the 503 to Huddersfield. And they appeared on those routes a lot more than they normally do over the Christmas period. Now, that doesn't help, obviously, with the Bradford Low Emission Zone, meaning they're limited on vehicles. However, a lot of these single-deckers were chosen over deckers. And the reason that they can be chosen over deckers is because, believe it or not, the Eclipse single-deckers, especially the Eclipse 2, so we're going on about the 2013 plate ones, fleet numbers 695, believe it or not, they have a higher passenger capacity than double-deckers do, that operate on the same route. Now, your seating capacity on an Eclipse, V7, I believe, roughly would, let's say, be about just over 40. So let's say between 40 and 45. And your double-deckers between 75 and 80 on average with your capacity. Now, because a double-decker is short wheelbase, and predominantly all the seats and the spaces upstairs, and you can't have any standing passengers upstairs, you can't have any standing passengers on the staircase, your capacity on a vehicle like that, you rang the bell as I shut the doors, so you're not wanting to get off there. But what's quite interesting is when you look at the standing passengers, you can probably only get up to about, realistically, another 10 people on standing on those buses because there isn't enough room for people to stand. So when you look at it on that perspective, oh, this is the bit where the thingy won't work. Where the traffic lights, are the traffic lights still broken? I mean, they might still be broken, we'll find out. But when you look at that, you can probably only get about 90 on them. Now remember, with the Eclipses, we said that their seating capacity is between 40 and 45-ish, depending on what kind of bus you go for all of that lot specs. However, I remember a couple of years ago looking and wondering why First Halifax had allowed single-deckers on the 508 on Boxing Day, and it's bonkers. And that's because, yes, they have a capacity, let's say sort of, as I said, 40-45 mark seats. But on those Eclipse 2s, those 695s, and the older ones will be slightly similar, the standing capacity on them is 62. Over 60 passengers, I believe it was 62, it was a few years ago, so I know the number roughly resembles 62. It's definitely in the 60s, but they can take 60 standing passengers. Now, there's no way on earth you'd want to take 60 standing passengers, ever. You'd never want to be on a bus with 60 standing passengers. That would just be absurd. But, on paper, for people to allocate it, and legally, they can take more people. So that's why sometimes you will find, that's why they're happy to substitute them in, especially on the 695s. Because their capacity, theoretically, is higher than the overall capacity of a double-decker. That is an incredibly absurd thing to think. Very, very absurd thing to think. But it is what it is. And I mean, I encourage you, I mean, don't get me wrong, you never know, these things change. These things can obviously change in time if regulations change or like a little subtle difference. But I definitely read 62 standing passengers. And that's your standing passengers from the... You can have them standing all the way from the front, the first grab pole behind the driver, all the way to the final step before the back row of seats. And you can have people standing all the way up and down there. And that's obviously why, to operators, if they don't have enough deckers or they've got a route that does need that capacity, legally, it's easy because, let's face it, when they're not carrying us, when they're lighter and they've not got the busy peak time loads, they're not using as much fuel as a decker, and then during peak time they can theoretically take more people than a double-decker can, even though I would possibly still recommend not trying to fill your bus with 62 standing passengers, because that would be horrendous. But it's that idea that it can be a thing, it can work. Now, if those people that have just walked up from the wrong stop can get up here before everybody gets on and off, they can get on. If not, they're going to have to wait for the next one. because I'm not waiting around for people that have stood at wrong bus stops. There we go. In the nicest way, these 12s are currently every 4 minutes, so the most with the timings I'm running at, the most I'll have to wait is about 5 minutes for the next one. So it's not too bad. No, I do need to go back to London again. Possibly be something I'll try and plan to do at the end of winter, I think. Because I bizarrely have a soft spot for London. Wouldn't be something you'd expect, me being a northerner. But I do have a soft spot for London. I just think it's how the city flows is just something I like. I don't think I'd want to live there because I think it'd be a little bit too hectic for me. But it's this sort of relatively fast-paced city. Everything's frequent, everything works. And I mean, for me, there's a lot of filming potential, but I also love visiting Transport Museum. I love going round on some new buses for London. It's a very unpopular opinion, is that? But I do. I enjoy going on to new buses for London around London. I mean, now we have the new Route Masters that are out in use as well on that heritage service in the capital, and there's all of these opportunities to travel about. And something I must say I wouldn't mind. Oh, don't start bleeping at me again. Something I wouldn't mind is going down to London when they've got some sort of heritage running day nearby as well, because I think that would be quite a nice way to do it. I remember when I was actually last in London, I didn't know until too late, but there was actually some sort of heritage running. They do literally a direct 30-minute bus ride from where I was. And to put it into perspective, 30-minute bus ride in London's not far. And it would have been on an Optare Metrodecker. And I remember thinking, looking back and going, oh, if I'd have known about that, I'd have gone. It's something a bit different. I mean, it was Route Masters and RTs predominantly, but it's still something very, very different. And this is this idea as well with people that travel around the country for heritage bus events. So it's something I do recommend doing if you can. If you can travel, around to different bus events, predominantly bus events that commemorate a specific route, a specific operator, or something like that, it's always beneficial because you learn quite a lot about that area. Sometimes going and just seeing an area in the modern image, you don't learn quite as much as you would do in relation to having that heritage element. I mean, one that I enjoyed, as you all saw, was Cornwall. Because although not all the vehicles were Cornish buses, you could go on Cornish VRs and other vehicles that were previously in use in Cornwall on old services that used to exist. And for me, that's the perfect kind of running day. Very, very much enjoy that. I'm going to struggle both lanes, actually. That seems like a wise idea. But yeah, the event in Cornwall was good. I mean, other events around the country that have the exact same aspect, that take inspiration off old routes, and then also try and get some of the old surviving vehicles from that area out as well. It's always a very, very nice way to do it, because it gives you that essence, as well as sort of having a day there, seeing what's there now, but it gives you that essence of what buses used to be there and what routes used to exist. Sometimes it's very, very easy to forget some of the old routes that used to exist in these kind of places, in these kinds of cities and towns, because you just get that accustomed to having what is now, for most places, quite a limited array of bus services. So there we go, that the blinding light of Oxford Circus. Oh my goodness me. That is, yeah, that's very, very light when it's sunsetting. That's actually hurting my eyes. Goodness me. Believe it or not, I still haven't seen this part of London. I've gone quite a few times, and something I did want to do this year, but sort of last year, should I say now, but didn't manage it, was go to Oxford Street during Christmas. It's something I have wanted to do for years, and I think next year I'll have quite a bit more free time, won't be as under pressure as much with the academic side. I think it's going to be something that, oh, come on, there we go. It'll be something that I think I'm going to be actively interested in doing, because I should hopefully have a bit of the free time to be able to do it. In fairness, the blind doesn't look as bad as I thought it would. Oh, that's a car. Is that it? Is that all the views that we get? There we go, yeah. I've noticed that's what they call glitch concept within OMSI 2 is if you turn the interior camera and it ends up in the rear trailer, it then when you press F3 to go into the outside view, it then circles the outside view based on the trailer. So just bear that in mind. It's not as bad as it used to be when OMSI 2 first released. When OMSI 2 first released, if you did that and clicked into the trailer and then clicked F3, you then wouldn't be able to drive the bus. That's how bad it was when OMSI 2 first released with the old Berlin buses. If you went into that back in the day, you wouldn't actually be able to drive your bus. Now, I think there was also the odd occasion where the bus would split as well. That's going back a bit of time now, but now I remember when I used to drive and probably will end up driving again. The 12s on a regular basis when I used to want sort of a couple of hours off in the evening, and I thought, oh, let's drive in central London. I always used to come down here and hope, because the number 3 joins pretty much at Oxford Circus and follows us all the way up to Oxford Street Terminus. I always used to hope that it's Piccadilly Circus, sorry, Piccadilly Circus, and then go all the way up to Oxford Circus. I always used to hope that there'd be a 3 in front going down Oxford Street, that's where we are now, because then that would pick everybody up, and then if you were driving the 12 behind, you'd just shoot down. And it was always quite nice when I used to drive this with full traffic on and would end up about 10 or 15 minutes late. So it was always quite a nice thing to do. But yes, that's Piccadilly Circus, this is Oxford Circus, that's why the blind says what it says. Don't realise how light it all is, goodness me. Very, very bright round here, goodness. The light contrast, because my eyes have just got used to driving in sort of as the sun was setting, it's really started doing my eyes any good, then coming into middle of central London where everything's just like beaming out at you. I do love as well how it says 12 Oxford Circus.png. Basically, I have just copied and pasted in the standard London hop, because I couldn't find the other one, unfortunately, in sort of as I wanted to film this. I had a little look, I couldn't find it in my files, so I kind of just thought, you know what, I want to drive it, let's just have a little drive. So that's why it does say .png on the side, just for clarification. Is there someone genuinely jumping on this bus to go one bus stop? And you can see how long I'm going to be here with the amount of people getting off the bus. There's that many people, they have merged into one human. Be it a scary human. They merged into one human cyborg. Speaking of, I'm looking forward to Doctor Who in 2023. That should be quite good. We'll find out why David Tennant appeared. And in the follow-up to that, why the regeneration that saw David Tennant return didn't follow the same pattern of regeneration that every other Doctor does, where they keep the previous one's clothes, that I thought was a bit strange. So yeah, we've got that to contend with. I feel like that's an entire discussion for a different day. Uh, that I won't bore you all with. If you do want to have that conversation, let me know in the comments on what your opinions are on it. And I thought it was a bit odd, but I am excited to see what David Tennant is going to. Are you just going to try and crush me? There we go. I am excited to see what the David Tennant Doctor is going to reveal, and obviously the actual official next Doctor, how that change is going to take place. It's one of these situations where I am quite hopeful that they've decided how the change is going to take place, and they're not just like hoping for some storyline to work after announcing who's going to be cast. So I'm hoping they had a storyline behind them. Otherwise, we can prepare for a botched style series that we've already had in more recent times, and it's not something I'm looking forward to again. Why did I open the front door? I didn't need to open the front doors. The full lock on this is not that good. Well, in fairness, that was a full bend round that corner. Although I'm quite glad that I waited for the cars to go to gain the space, otherwise I wouldn't have cleared that. Also, remember the times used to. If you basically drove like the new route mail. So in fairness, my favourite thing to drive in here is the Dennis Trident 2. Like the C400, because the C400 London one has the best sounds. It genuinely does sound like an incredibly throaty Trident. So that's my favourite thing to drive on the 12s. And I always know that if you set off from those lights we've just turned round, if you set off as they change to green, and you absolutely floor it round that bend down here, you make it through both of the lights in one go, and you get to terminus about a minute or two quicker. I used to remember that. Because something that was always quite nice was absolutely caning it down Oxford Street and doing it so that I had about 5-10 minutes to kill at the terminus. Because then obviously you then get stuck at these lights and then you've got to wait for these to change. So otherwise you do make it through. You make it through pretty much with these as set earlier all the way through. Oh, there we go. As set earlier all the way through. That I must say does in the long run help. I've just realised I do still need to take some sort of screenshot. So we'll just do some basic style thing at the lights, I think, because that looks nice. And then that oh, I like that actually. I like that style. Although what we might do is get one on the turn, I think. There we go. Let's see how. Okay, that has not gone to particular plan. As a shot, but I think. Oh wow, yeah. With that sunset that's glaring through, that could work nicely. So let's. Oh, that angle's wrong. We'll get the angle eventually. There we go. Minor little movements, or as little as movements as it will allow me. Come on. There we go. That'll do. Sorted. And that looks nice. How early did we get here? Oh, we did alright for time. Pretty much stayed on time throughout. So there we go, and we are fully in the bay. That's always quite nice. So that was our New Year's special drive from Camberwell Green Garage all the way through to Oxford Circus. Now, before I do forget to mention it, the very exciting news is between now and the end of January, I am doubling up the OMSI 2 simulation section videos on this channel till the end of January. That basically means that, as well as the upload every Thursday, because of the success of the series taking off and the fact that I've enjoyed recording the Christmas and New Year specials on Sundays, videos will now release of OMSI 2 and the simulation section content on Thursdays and Sundays at 5 p.m. throughout January 2023. In February, we'll probably revert back to the normal weekly schedule, but till then, between now and the end of this month, I do hope you all enjoy these videos. Be sure to like the videos that you enjoy, comment and keep suggesting ideas. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already to support the series, and get your friends to check out the channel and subscribe too if you think they're going to be into it too. But for now, that's all very exciting news, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you all join us on the doubled up OMSI 2 and simulation section content throughout this month. This will be also alongside the average 20 or so backseat videos that release every week, 3 days a week as well, complementing the archive of over 4,500 backseat and engine focused videos from the past and present of public transport in the UK and beyond. There's always a video there for everyone, including quite a lot of vehicles that have since been withdrawn and scrapped, and I believe there's a few B7 LA videos, so you can contrast with the older Bender buses of the time, comparing to what this one is that we've just driven in this video. For now, though, I really hope you've enjoyed it, and do keep liking and subscribing, and go and check out the Andmore Central channel for the other special releasing this evening, and I will see you all in the next one I make. Goodbye for now, and Happy New Year. Bye!